Welcome back. Today we're going to tie my Coffin fly. This is a spinner of the eastern green drake. Growing up in Pennsylvania, you know, on the limestones and everything, I got some deer hair hanging out over here. A little bit of a mess there, but growing up in the limestone streams, Penns Creek is one that is just absolutely famous for this hatch. It gets absolutely wild. Fishing the duns is fun. It usually happens like right before dark. You'll get like a 30-minute window when them duns really start coming off the water heavy. The fish take notice and they're really active. But the spinners is the main event really. When they hit the water, I mean, it's after dark. It's just game on. It can be some phenomenal fishing. Me personally, I've always liked the sulfur hatch better than I do the drakes. I'd fish the sulfurs right through the drake hatch during the day, but then at night we'd go into these coffin flies and we'd have a lot of fun with them. But I tied a couple here just to make sure I was able to knock the rust off. It's been a while since I've tied one of these, so we're going to go ahead and get into this. To start on it, it's an MFC 7050 size 6, so we actually use a streamer hook for this. You can scale them up and down. I would maybe go down to a size 8, but that would probably be about the furthest that I would go down on these. 6 seems to be right in that sweet spot, but depending on the river system that you're fishing, I know Yellow Creek down there, it's just a stock stream. Down in Bedford County, it has some smaller than what Penns gets. They're a little bit smaller, so I'll scale them down a little bit there. But I mean, really, for the most part, fishing at night, I really don't see a size up or down being a huge deal breaker. I mean, you always try and get them as close as you can, but I don't see it being a big deal breaker. So if you want to just stick with a standard 6, that would be fine too. So to start on this one, I've got gel spun 50 in white. I'm just going to get a thread base down here throughout, and then I'm going to work my way back to the barb of the hook on this one, just for a reference point as to where I'm going to take my thread, and then I'm going to move that stuff back. Then I'm going to go into this is a moose body hair. Moose mane would be probably a little bit more ideal to work with because you're not going to have quite the curves and everything, or the twists and all that. And it would be a little bit easier to control. As you can see there, we've got some curves all through that, but we're going to use that to our advantage because you look at the majority of the mayflies and everything, and they have those tails that are just they're not perfectly straight. How you see a lot of them tied, they're flared out, and depending, some of them have the 3 tails, some of them have the 2. But with these drakes, they have, or with the coffin flies, I should say, they have some very long tails. When they get to that spinner phase, there's a couple in there that were just a little bit shorter than the rest, so I want to take those out. And I'm going to wind up with about, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 strands in here. And I want to measure this out. You probably can't see it too well on the camera there, just because we're using so little of this. But I want to measure this out about 1 1/4 times the length of the hook. And I'm going to just set these back. And all I'm going to do is just capture these right on the top portion of this hook. And hopefully you'll be able to see when I let this go that we have these tails just kind of flaring out. Let me see if I put my hand behind it, if that would make a difference. Not really. It doesn't really make a huge difference. But you've got these tails just kind of flaring out.
Let me see if I put some white behind it, if it picks up a little bit better. There you go. It really, you have these tails kind of flared to both sides. I don't worry about it. I mean, we're fishing these at night. All I want is the profile of a tail back there. I don't need them perfect by any means. I don't need them perfect by any means. So I'm just going to work this to the front here. I just want to get a few good wraps around this. Get this tied into place. And I'm just cleaning that up with the thread wraps, making it nice and even throughout. And then we're going to move into our body here. Now the thing with this, the body's deer belly hair, and the thing with this, when you're fishing these at night and these coffin flies and everything, you don't want to be messing around guessing if your fly is floating or not, anything like that. So that was one of the reasons that I ended up going to this body hair, or to the belly hair for the body on this fly, because I knew for certain that it was floating. I didn't need floating or anything for on hackles or anything like that. I just, after you catch a fish, you shake it off. You don't really even have to. It's gonna get rid of the water on your back cast and everything. You basically just unhook it and you're back to fishing. With the traditional stuff, with the dubbing or whatever it may be, you catch a fish, you really have to dry it off. You're dressing it with whatever floatant you're using. This stuff, it's a plug and play. Unhook the fish, boom, you're back out to the next one with that body hair. And you'll see as we do this, the reason to why it's going to float so well. And I'm going to take just a pinch of belly hair right there. I'm going to get that, clean it out really good in the comb. And then I'm just going to stack that real quick. And then get rid of these shorter fibers that are in there. Make sure that your tips are pretty well nice and even. And I want to advance that just a touch. Right there looks pretty good. Right there looks pretty good. So I'm going to have about, this damn phone never stops ringing. At least it's probably telling me my insurance is about to expire or something. At least it's not the work phone. I can ignore this one. Okay, anyhow, back to the fly here prior to all the distractions. I'm going to set these, I want to set this in place right here, and I just want the tips of this going back slightly past. Knox, cut it out. I just want the tips going back slightly past the bend of my hook. And what that's going to do is, one, it's going to aid in flotation. Two, it's going to make a little bit of a ring on the water. So it's going to be able to grab some attention from the fish underneath. When this touches down on the water, it's going to make a little bit of a commotion that may set your fly apart from some of the naturals, depending. I think it just helps out a little bit in getting your fly noticed, especially because you're fishing this at night. So then I just want to take 2 wraps, fairly loose, and before I go anywhere else on this, I just want to cover those wraps up with some thread. I just want to clean those up slightly. I don't know what they're excited about out there. Okay, so I have those wraps nice and cleaned up. Now I don't have pressure on my initial wraps when I was going forward. Before I do that, I'm just pushing my thumb down through here. I'm spreading those fibers around the hook so I have nice even coverage throughout. I have the hair on the bottom, and then I'm just going to spiral some wraps to the back. This is going to make the segmentation on the fly. Absolutely do not need the segmentation. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we're fly tyers. We try and make everything look pretty by trade. So why not just take the time and get the segments in there and have them spaced out nicely. There we go. And then I want one more going right back to the barb of the hook. So I'm going to make my final wrap right there. There you can see we have that belly hair, we have the tips coming back, and we still have our moose body hair for the main portion of the tail right there. Look underneath, make sure that you have good coverage, and then all I'm going to do is just figure eight, or I'm just going the opposite direction. I'm essentially making X's on the top of the fly here with my thread. Doesn't have to be perfect. Once again, we are fishing these at night, so you don't have to fret over it too awful much if you have one thread wrap to the left or the right. Obviously don't make it sloppy or anything like that, but don't spend a ton of time on something that really isn't going to be noticed all that much. Just make sure that your belly hair is secured to the hook nicely. You have some nice even spacing throughout, and then if you want, you can throw on the top, you could throw on some why it's escaping me right now, UV, just to secure up your thread wraps a little bit. Tooth gets in there, it may bust up the thread or whatever it may be. So if you want to throw some UV in there, by all means, it will shore up your fly a little bit more, but not absolutely necessary. So then I want to take some small hackle. I'm not going with a lot here at all. These are probably, well, on the done Grizzly it's probably an 18 or something. On the black that I have, this is a Metz hackle from going on 30 years old now. I still have a little bit of it left over, believe it or not. So I mean, it doesn't have the best selection in the world on the black. So this one's a little bit bigger. It's probably a 14, but this done Grizzly's probably an 18. And I don't really care about the size on this hackle too much. Obviously, don't go throwing in like a size 8 or something like that. That'll wind up making a good mess for you. But I just want to get these in here. I'm going to wind up trimming them anyhow. So then what I want to do is right in front of where I tied in my hackle stems, I'm going about 3 wraps forward. That's where I'm going to tie in my parapost wings. And you can use whatever you want for these spent wings. I've always liked the parapost. It's quick to tie in. It gives you the profile that you want. And if you want to, you can even dress these with some floating if you need to. But like I said, with the body material that we're using, you really don't need to dress this fly at all. So then I'm taking 2 pieces and I'm putting them together just to give me a little bit of extra bulk on those wings. And then I'm just running a little dubbing teaser through that. And then I'm going to find my center point. I'm not really too concerned right now about the length of these wings. I'm going to trim them up as I go. I just want them in place and try and get them close to this halfway point. That looks pretty good right there. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I can almost bring those back just a touch. I think I'm pretty happy with where those are sitting right there. I'm pretty happy with it. So then, I just want to go back through here, and if you look at the coffin flies, even if you look at the duns, the adults, they have this black thorax section, like up toward the wing case. It's really prominent on the on these drakes, and that black section back there. Get those out of the camera. It just really stands out. Now, once again, we're fishing these at night. If you want to, you can just dub it straight white or whatever you want to do. But I always just, especially when I was younger, I tried to get everything like exact. Like, it used to be really bad. I've since calmed down a little bit on that. Not as bad as I used to be. Everything used to be exact. I thought that was the ticket. The closer I got the fly to the original, the more I was going to catch. But turns out that's not the case. That's not the case. Alright, so really light on the dubbing here. I want just enough to where it's going to have that black coming through. And I'm getting my wings caught here and there. There we go. Every once in a while, just take a look on the underneath side. Make sure that you have good coverage. You don't have a piece of thread or something coming through where it's not covered. I mean, you could alleviate that by tying with black thread, honestly, but you guys have all heard my rants on black gel spun thread. Stuff's garbage. Absolute garbage. So I'm just making some wraps through here, and then I'm going to figure 8 around my wing case. I'm going to flip this back to the proper orientation now. Just make a couple figure 8 wraps around there, make sure that I have good coverage. And I need a little bit more dubbing here. A little bit more dubbing. We just about have this fly finished. I just want to fill that out a little bit more. A little bit more here. Before I make my way to the front on this, to fill out the rest of that dubbing. That was dumb of me. That was dumb. Before I make my way to the front on this, I just want to make sure that I have good coverage underneath. Everything looks good. And then I'm just going to peel those wings back. I'm going to build up a little bit of a taper. Just a little bit of a taper right in front of those wings. And we've got a nice black thorax section on there, and you can see underneath we've got really nice coverage on that. No gaps or anything in there. And then what I want to do is I want to advance this just a little bit back into that dubbing so I don't have my hackle ending right at the eye of the hook. And I better use some pliers here. I better use some pliers. So now all I want to do is I just want to work this hackle right through here. I'm not really concerned about how the spacing is or anything. This is just some filler more than anything. Just to kind of dress the fly up a little bit. But I just want 4 to 5 wraps right through there. You can see how small that done Grizzly is. I mean, there's hardly anything to it. Like I said, it's probably an 18 or a 20. Get a few more wraps right there just to clear that out. And then we'll get rid of that. I'll clean. I had 1 or 2 stray fibers going on me there. Then I'm going to go back to my pliers. And this old Met's hackle. It's going to make a couple wraps around here with the black. And like I said, I'm not really concerned about the length on this because I am going to wind up trimming this a good deal shorter. Like I said, this is just essentially some filler. I've got 3 wraps in the back. I'm going to go with just that 1 in the front. Just a little bit of filler on this hackle. Get 1 or 2 wraps right there. Everything's pretty clean as it sits. Now we're just going to whip finish. And we're just about completed. 4, 5. Need a couple more in there. That looks pretty good. Make sure that we have a good clean cut on that thread. And then before I go to doing anything else, I'm just going to take and touch this white thread up with some black. And then spread these spent wings around slightly. They're a little bit on the long side. So I'm just gonna take and round these off just a little bit. I'm not getting really detailed on the shape of these wings at all. I just want to round them off slightly, give a little bit of shape to them. But like I said, we're fishing this thing at night, so I don't get too wrapped around the axle on the details on this. More so than anything, I just want this thing to be a functional fly. Now, it used to be back in the day that I would tie some for like shadow boxes and stuff like that, and that's when I would really take my time worrying about the details and everything on every single bit of the fly. I don't really do that much anymore. I'm more so for functional flies, not really to be pretty. As I say that, I'm here nitpicking over all this. So then I'm just taking and I'm trimming my hackles on the very top. And like I said, I mean, they're pretty well flush on the bottom. I have a little bit extra on the top, and that's all the more that I'm going to trim those wings up as it sits. But there you can see that is the Coffin fly spinner. Let me spread that one out just a little bit more, make it look a little bit more symmetrical. But this thing floats like a damn cork. You can't sink this thing, and like I said, because of the body material that we use with the belly hair, I mean, it just floats. It flat out does, and it still allows you to keep a nice slender profile, as you can see right here. Some of the times when you go using foam,
what will wind up happening with the foam is it winds up getting a little bit too bulky. So that's one of the reasons why I went to the why I went to the belly hair as opposed to using the foam. Fake snuff that I've been chewing here, trying to quit, and must have got a little bit of it there, but sure isn't any Copenhagen, that's for sure, man. Anyhow, enough of that. No more headaches or anything, hopefully. There is the coffin fly. My goodness, I spaced out there for a second. Spaced out, but that is the spinner for the green drake back in the East Coast. You'll see a lot of these throughout Pennsylvania, New York, all the way up through the Adirondacks, and up into New England. Not a ton really down in southern Appalachia. I didn't run across a ton of them. My time in Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, you get a lot of sulfurs down that way, more so caddis than anything. But as you start getting up closer to Virginia, West Virginia, that's when you start really getting into the prolific green drake hatches, and then that's where this fly is going to really come into play at night. But enough rambling. I think I covered everything that I needed to, and then some. But if you guys have questions or comments on it, leave them with me and I'll get back to you. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll catch you next Wednesday.